At 2:14 a.m., the digital map over the English Channel suddenly stops making sense. On the bridge of a 150,000-ton LNG carrier, the GPS screen flickers, resets, and places the ship 3 miles inland, somewhere in the middle of a French wheat field. A few seconds later, the automatic identification system erupts with a proximity alert. On the display, 500 ghost vessels appear out of nowhere, all moving at impossible speeds, nearly 460 miles per hour. Then the screens go dark. Out of that electronic haze, a shape begins to form, one that no civilian radar can clearly identify. The Yaroslav Mudry is moving fast, cutting through the narrow waters at 35 miles per hour, while its sensors overwhelm the surrounding frequency spectrum. The Strait of Dover is only 21 miles wide. By blinding the digital systems around it, the Russian frigate has turned one of the world's busiest sea lanes into a maze of steel, confusion, and split-second decisions. But the Russians are not the only ones navigating blind. Somewhere inside that chaos, HMS Iron Duke and the USS Arleigh Burke are tracking a target that seems to be changing the picture in real time. The US Navy is providing the electronic backbone for the response, while the British ship moves in for the physical intercept. One wrong decision, one delayed order, and the entire channel could turn into a disaster zone. The Yaroslav Mudry, a Neustrashimy-class frigate, surges forward and slices across the bow of a 300,000-ton crude oil tanker. It misses the tanker's bulbous bow by less than 40 yards. The move is deliberate. The Russian ship is using the massive civilian vessels around it as moving cover, masking its own radar signature from shore-based systems. HMS Iron Duke answers with a sudden burst of speed. Its spay gas turbines roar to life, driving the 5,000-ton Type 23 frigate through the water at 34 miles per hour in a matter of seconds. Beside it, the USS Arleigh Burke pushes through the chop with controlled aggression. The American destroyer brings the heavy electronic power. While HMS Iron Duke focuses on blocking the Russian frigate's path, the Arleigh Burke forces its way through the interference with overwhelming electromagnetic strength. The distance closes fast, 60 yards, 50, 40. At this range, it is no longer a naval maneuver, it is a close-quarters contest between 5,000-ton machines, where every turn of the wheel matters. On the deck of the Yaroslav Mudry, the AK-630 close-in systems rotate into position. Their barrels track toward the bridge of the USS Arleigh Burke. The American ship responds first. The Mark 45 5-inch gun on the bow of the Arleigh Burke fires a single warning round. A 70-pound shell tears across the surface and strikes the water exactly 500 yards in front of the Yaroslav Mudry's bow. At the same moment, HMS Iron Duke activates a long-range acoustic device. A focused wall of sound measured at 150 decibels slams into the Russian bridge. The windows crack under the pressure and the crew inside is thrown into confusion. The Yaroslav Mudry veers hard. Its steel hull scrapes along the side guard of HMS Iron Duke, sending a harsh metallic shriek across the black water. And this is where the real strength of the service shows itself. Because anyone who has ever stood watch aboard an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer or a Type 23 frigate knows one thing. Technology only matters when the people behind it can stay calm under pressure. If you have served on these ships, or if you have family out there right now holding the line in this kind of shadow game, share your story in the comments. Tell us about the moments when the systems failed, the screens went dark, and the sailors had to take over. Because a fleet is not just steel, engines, and radar. A fleet is made of the people who know what to do when the lights go out. Our alliance is built for moments like this, moments when the picture disappears, the signals turn unreliable, and every decision has to be made in the dark. While the frigates scrape and maneuver dangerously close to one another, the Russian tanker Yelnya suddenly leaves the traffic lane. It is no longer moving like a commercial vessel, it is searching for something far more valuable beneath the surface. The Atlantic backbone, the fiber optic cables carrying nearly $10 trillion in daily financial transactions. The Yelnya slows almost to a standstill, stopping directly above the coordinates. Then a hidden hatch in its hull slides open. The moon pool. High above, a US Navy P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft circles at 5,000 feet. The crew sees the tanker's movement, reads the pattern, and reacts immediately. The Poseidon releases a high-altitude anti-submarine sonobuoy field. 32 acoustic sensors strike the water in a perfect grid around the Yelnya. Within seconds, the operators aboard the P-8A isolate a signature beneath the tanker. The electric hum of an underwater drone. It is attaching itself to the cable. Through the Poseidon's data link, the USS Arleigh Burke receives the update almost instantly. The destroyer deploys its sonar suite, extending its underwater awareness into the channel. The Yaroslav Mudry sees the sonar arrays entering the water and moves to interfere. The Russian frigate performs a stern crossing, a dangerous high-speed maneuver meant to drag its propellers across the NATO sonar cables and destroy the array. The USS Arleigh Burke is forced into an emergency reverse. The engines roar against the sea with such force that the entire ship vibrates from bow to stern. Then the American destroyer counters. A spread of acoustic decoys launches from the Mark 59 system. The devices hit the water and begin broadcasting the signature of a powerful submarine reactor. Russian sonar operators are suddenly overwhelmed by false contacts, ghost signals, and impossible targets. While the Russians try to sort the real picture from the fake one, the USS Arleigh Burke moves into a blocking position between the Yelnya and open water, cutting off the tanker's escape route and pinning it against the British coastline. HMS Iron Duke launches its Wildcat HMA-2 helicopter. The USS Arleigh Burke sends up its MH-60R Seahawk. The two helicopters move into position above the tanker, hovering just 60 feet over the deck. Their dipping sonars lower toward the moon pool, searching for whatever the Yelnya is trying to hide beneath the surface. But the Yaroslav Mudry is not backing down. Its MR-3E2 fire control radar activates and locks onto the MH-60R Seahawk. Inside the cockpit, the radar warning receiver changes from a soft chirp into a continuous, nerve-cutting tone. Every crew member knows what that sound means. The situation has moved from pressure to the edge of open confrontation. The USS Arleigh Burke responds instantly. Its Aegis combat system shifts into automatic special mode. On deck, the Mark 41 vertical launch system prepares itself, mechanical interlocks disengaging inside the silos. If the Russian ship escalates, the American destroyer is ready to answer with an SM-2 interceptor capable of reaching targets moving at 2,500 miles per hour. Then, the Yaroslav Mudry commits to a final pressure move. The frigate pushes its engines to emergency flank speed and aims its reinforced bow directly toward the midsection of the USS Arleigh Burke. 400 yards, 200 yards. On the Russian deck, sailors stand ready at the AK-630 mounts, waiting for the moment the ships come close enough to decide the standoff by force. At the last possible second, HMS Iron Duke intervenes. The British frigate activates a high-intensity dazzler, sending a brilliant green beam across the water and into the Russian bridge. The light floods their optics and overwhelms the helmsman's view. At the same moment, the USS Arleigh Burke fires its bow thrusters. Massive underwater jets shove the front of the destroyer sideways with brutal force. The Yaroslav Mudry misses the American hull by less than 15 feet. The near pass throws a wall of water across the deck of the USS Arleigh Burke, soaking the sailors stationed near the 25mm chain guns. The Russians now understand that the pressure run has failed. The NATO ships have not moved aside. The tanker is still boxed in. The helicopters are still above the moon pool, so the Yelnya makes its next move. From its deck, two Project 03160 Raptor-class high-speed patrol boats are dropped into the water. These are 55-mile-per-hour interceptors built for speed, pressure, and special operations at sea. Each one carries a heavy 14.5mm deck-mounted weapon system and is designed to move naval Spetsnaz teams into position fast. Both boats turn toward the Wildcat HMA-2 helicopter, trying to force it away from its hover over the underwater drone. The USS Arleigh Burke answers immediately, launching its own 7-meter rigid-hulled inflatable boat with a U.S. Navy security team on board. HMS Iron Duke sends out its Pacific 24, carrying Royal Navy boarding technicians. The NATO boats hit the water at 45 miles per hour. The English Channel, normally a corridor for slow-moving giants, has suddenly become a high-speed arena of engines, spray, and split-second decisions. The Russian Raptors engage first. Bright 14.5mm tracers cut through the darkness, skipping across the waves like burning stones. One round tears through the inflatable collar of the American RHIB, but the boat stays on the surface. Its multi-chambered construction keeps it moving. The American crew responds with controlled bursts from an M240B, aiming for the Russian engines rather than the crews. The 7.62mm rounds tear into the outboard housings of the Raptor boats, forcing them to lose speed and maneuverability. One Russian Raptor swings wide, trying to roll the American RHIB in its wake. The U.S. coxswain reacts instantly. He throws the boat into a hard J-turn, spinning the RHIB through 180 degrees and placing the M24OB gunner in the perfect position to sweep the Russian deck and drive the boat off course. Above them, the MH-60R Seahawk pilot sees the Raptors closing in and releases a spread of flares. Burning magnesium fills the night with white light, turning the entire sector bright as day. Under that sudden glare, the Wildcat HMA-2 makes its move. It releases a slug, a 500-pound non-explosive acoustic weight, directly into the Yelnya's moon pool. The slug drops like a stone, guided by the USS Arleigh Burke's laser designator. 60 feet below the surface, it finds the drone. The impact tears away the robotic arms and collapses the internal pressure housing. The induction sleeve, the core of the tap system, breaks apart into copper, glass, and useless fragments. Inside the Yelnya, the hull shudders as the damaged drone is driven hard against the internal bulkheads. The Russian crew realizes the operation has been exposed. They rush to recover what is left, trying desperately to winch the wreckage back inside. The Yaroslav Mudry moves to cover the retreat. Its AK-630 close-in systems rotate and begin sweeping the water around the tanker in a full circle. Thousands of 30mm rounds tear into the surface of the channel, turning the sea into a boiling ring of white spray and metal. But the USS Arleigh Burke does not pull away. The American destroyer moves into the danger area and brings its failing CIWS into surface mode. Its rounds are set to burst above the Russian deck, damaging sensor housings, radar equipment, and exposed arrays without striking deep into the ship itself. The Yaroslav Mudry answers with a massive cloud of chaff and flares. For the civilian tankers trapped nearby, the scene becomes almost impossible to understand. Their radar screens are already unreliable, their navigation systems are distorted, and now the sky itself seems to be filled with light, smoke, and false signatures. Across the radio, captains shout in 5 different languages, demanding to know what is happening and whether the world has just crossed into something far more dangerous. The Yaroslav Mudry and the Yelnya use the confusion as cover. Through the smoke, flares, and electronic noise, both Russian vessels break toward the Atlantic. Their engines are pushed beyond normal limits, funnels pouring thick black smoke into the night as they try to escape the channel. The NATO task force follows them all the way to the edge of territorial waters, bows cutting hard into the rising swells, crews still at their stations, weapons trained, waiting for the next move. The chase runs for 20 miles. Now the two forces are out in the open Atlantic. The water grows rougher. 10-foot waves roll beneath the hulls, lifting the ships and dropping them back into the dark. Then the Yaroslav Mudry turns one final time. Its bridge is damaged, its hull is marked from the earlier contact, but its systems are still active. The Russian frigate brings its anti-ship missiles onto the USS Arleigh Burke. The American destroyer answers immediately, assigning its SM-6 missiles to the Russian frigate. The SM-6 is one of the most versatile weapons in the US Navy's inventory. It can engage aircraft, incoming missiles, and surface targets with remarkable precision. At this distance, less than 10 miles, it would reach the Russian ship in seconds. For 10 long minutes, both vessels hold each other in a silent lock. No one moves. No one speaks more than necessary. Every sensor, every radar return, every electronic signal is being watched with absolute focus. A false reading, a sudden glitch, or one misunderstood movement could push both crews past the point of return. Then the Russians make the first move. The Yaroslav Mudry turns south, setting course toward the Mediterranean. Behind it, the Yelnya follows slowly, its moon pool doors bent, its systems damaged, and its hull leaving a faint trail across the water. They leave behind debris, wreckage, and a shattered drone resting on the seabed. The USS Arleigh Burke and HMS Iron Duke remain on station. The American destroyer's hull is scratched and stripped of paint in places where debris and wake slammed against the steel. The British frigate bears its own marks from the night's close contact, but both ships are still there. The cables are still intact. As the sun begins to rise, GPS signals across the merchant ships snap back into place. Navigation screens correct themselves. Radar pictures stabilize. Captains breathe again. The world keeps moving, unaware that for 4 hours, the English Channel came closer to open confrontation than almost anyone will ever know. But every sailor on those ships knows the truth. The Russians were not trying to start a wider conflict. They were testing the line. They wanted to know whether the United States and the United Kingdom would hold their ground when the lights went out, the screens failed, and the pressure became real. That night, they got their answer in steel, sound, discipline, and sailors who refused to move. Before you go, there is one detail about Sea Scepter and the SM-2 that almost no one talks about. Both are key interceptors for the United Kingdom and the United States, but they handle the launch phase in completely different ways. On the USS Arleigh Burke, the SM-2 uses a hot launch system. When the rocket ignites inside the Mark 41 vertical launch system, the missile leaves the cell under its own power, with intense heat and exhaust vented safely through the ship's deck structure. On HMS Iron Duke, Sea Scepter uses a cold launch system. Instead of igniting inside the ship, the missile is pushed upward by a high-pressure system, thrown more than 100 feet into the air before its engine starts. Why does that matter in a place like the English Channel? Because a hot launch creates a powerful infrared signature and a burst of heat that can temporarily complicate the ship's own sensor picture during the most critical seconds of an engagement. And in a crowded sea lane, a few seconds can matter. With a cold launch, the British ship can fire while keeping a cleaner radar picture throughout the launch sequence. The target stays visible. The surrounding traffic stays tracked. The crew keeps its awareness. The United States and the United Kingdom brought two different defensive philosophies into the same fight. One built around overwhelming reach and power, the other built around clean launches, compact ships, and constant awareness. Together, they made sure there was no easy angle of approach, from the sky, from the surface, or from beneath the water. So the next time you see a routine patrol, remember this. Nothing on that deck is there by accident. Every radar, every launcher, every helicopter, every sailor standing watch exists for a moment most people will never see. A moment when the world stays calm only because someone out there refused to blink. Disclaimer. This video is a dramatized scenario inspired by real-world naval capabilities, public information, and current geopolitical tensions. It is not a factual report of real events. Certain actions, dialogue, and emotional details have been fictionalized for storytelling and educational purposes.